Hey there everybody, and welcome back to Sasquatch Speaks. This is Sasquatch, otherwise known as Gavisas, welcoming you all once again to this dark little corner of the internet, which is oh so affectionately referred to as our own. On today's episode, we will be talking about the topic which should have been covered yesterday, but was not because I'm an idiot and didn't save the file before I tried to transfer it over into my video editing program. And yes, it was just bad things that happened. With that being said, today's topic is one that I have a great deal of personal care invested into. I mean, it's something that I happen to feel very strongly about, and perhaps, well, it's definitely something that a lot of other people feel very strongly about. But, I'm going to tell you first why I feel strongly about it, and then I'm going to get into the actual debate of what it is. First of all, what it is the American Constitution has its articles and talks about how this government is set up and how it works and what each of the different branches does. And then at the very end of it, there's this little addendum there called the Bill of Rights, or the Amendment section. And the first 10 amendments are referred to specifically as the Bill of Rights, and the second one, to me, is perhaps the most important of them all. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, no, the first one is the most important because, it allows for free speech, right to an assembly, prevents the government from setting up a state religion, all that sort of lovely things like that. And people say, well, no, it's the Fifth Amendment, the right to not have to testify to your own detriment, or the Fourth Amendment, the right to not have your stuff searched or seized without a warrant or due process, or any of the other ones, or maybe even the 10th Amendment, that anything not specifically mentioned in the Constitution is something that is given over to the states to govern, not something the federal government should be messing around with, and one that everyone who is currently in the federal government should probably read again just for clarification on what that means. Moving on. But to me, the most important of all of these rights and amendments is the second. And the reason I say that is because the Second Amendment is the powerhouse arm of the amendment, of the entire Constitution. It's like, okay, these are the rules governing the government. These are the rules governing the people. And these are the rights specifically set aside for the people, which the government cannot take over. Now, in terms of the First Amendment, okay, freedom of speech. Well, what if, say, just hypothetically, the United States government said, no, we have decided we don't like that anymore. You're criticizing our policy, you're criticizing whatever it is, you're stirring the people up, we don't like that, so now we're going to step in and stop you. We're going to prevent you from continuing to express your opinion, continuing to speak against the things that we say. And that's something that they could do. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are saying very negative things about our government. I mean, even I won't say that I don't think I've said anything specifically negative against the government. I said I don't particularly like a lot of things that they're doing, but I won't say that I've been like openly rebellious. I'm just critical, highly critical. Suppose they came to me and they said, we don't like what you're doing, we don't like what anyone else is doing who said anything bad or negative or even remotely critical of our policies or anything like that. What happens next? Because they're the government. They have the power, the army and all that lovely stuff to, if need be, forcibly stop whoever they decide from doing whatever they decide to make them stop doing. They can do that. I mean, they have the capability. It's just a matter of whether or not they will exercise it to that extent or not. I'm not saying that they will. Well, there's certain Patriot Act and bunch of other things are saying that they are without warrants and just kind of overstepping the whole rest of the Constitution. And that's kind of the point here, really, that without the Second Amendment saying the people may have weapons, there's nothing stopping the government at all from just ruling through force, ruling by dictatorship and saying, well, no, we like it this way, not how this little document says, so we're just going to change it willy-nilly and as how we decide, and you all will either get in line or be put out of the way. That's a very nice way of saying it. And I find it interesting that, well, let's just read the amendment real quick. I'm actually taking, the amendment is the amendment, but I'm actually going to read a little bit of an article here from Cornell University Law School. It reads, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, that was just in there, I did not mean to repeat myself. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Such language has created considerable debate regarding the amendment's intended scope. On the one hand, some believe that the amendment phrase, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, creates an individual constitutional right for citizens of the United States. Under this individual right theory, the United States Constitution restricts legislative bodies from prohibiting firearm possession, or at the very least, the amendment renders prohibitory and restrictive regulation presumptively unconstitutional. On the other hand, some scholars point to the prefatory language, a well-regulated militia, to argue that the framers intended only to restrict Congress from legislating away a state's right to self-defense. Scholars have come to call this theory the collective rights theory. A collective rights theory of the Second Amendment asserts that citizens do not have an individual right to possess guns, and that local, state, and federal legislative bodies therefore possess the authority to regulate firearms without implicating a constitutional right. And there's more to the article, but it's incredibly long-winded, and it just gets into semantics, which is not really the point. The point is the broad subject here. Does the United States government have the right to take guns away from its citizens? Obviously, I say no. Obviously. That was the whole point of the preamble there. I say no. And the reason I say no, and this has been pointed out multiple times by many different people, so this is not a new or original concept to me, but it's right there in the original language. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's two entities and two functions. The function of the militia, the first entity, is to protect the security of the state. That's what they do. The second entity is the people, and their function is to keep and bear arms. Well, why do the people get the right to keep and bear arms? Well, the reason is because the government needs a well-regulated militia to keep the security of the state. They have that power. They have the big stick and can say, well, no, we are. It's meant to be used as in defense, or I don't really agree with a lot of people who say that we should be using our army as an aggressive tool, and they go, oh, it's just a preemptive strike. Well, I don't really agree with that, and there's a lot more in there that I'm not going to get into right now. But suffice it to say that the army is by the framing of the Constitution, it's meant to be a defensive tool. It's not meant to be an aggressive arm of the government to go and claim new territories, which it has been used for in the past, and I don't necessarily agree with that either. But such are the cases of which we find ourselves in today. Not going to look backward, just going to move forward. How's that? With that being the case, people are saying that, well, why do people, the citizenry, the common man, need firearms? And it's very simple. Because government, the overarching governing body, has this incredibly powerful unit, this incredibly powerful entity, which at any time they could say, we know that you're pulled from the citizenry, but now we feel the citizenry is no longer abiding with our demands, and so we're now going to turn your might upon them. And we're going to take away their rights, we're going to remove everything else that is a protection for them. That is why the common man, I won't say need, because need is a strong word, but should have the right, or needs to have that right. I'm not going to say that everyone has to have a gun, strap it on your side, and carry it around the town all day, but I'm saying it should be your right. It should be your option whether to have it or not. Whether you say, okay, I implicitly trust my government across the board, no holds barred, to never do anything wrong, or go, I understand that the government is made up of people, and people are fallible, and people are greedy, and people are power hungry. And at some point, the right collection of people may come into power who shouldn't be there. And they're all going to get together and say, okay, well, all this stuff that this in the rule book, we're going to throw that out and we're just going to take over everything. To me, it's skepticism is rewarded. Even if that never happens, and hopefully it never does. But the point is, the framers of the Constitution realized that that could happen. And I say that that was their original intention, and I have a couple proofs for this. And I'll get in, and I'm going to get into those right now. First of all, the members of the Constitution, or the writers of it, not the members, it's not really people, not really something you can join, but the writers and the framers of it said, we just came off of a revolutionary war. We had an oppressive, overarching government who used their military might to oppress us. They took away our rights, they taxed us unjustly, they did all of these horrendous things to us that we decided, hey, we don't like this, and so we grabbed our guns, we got up, and we said, okay, get out. We don't like you anymore. Well, I mean, that wasn't their first thing that they did. I mean, there was a lot of legislation and ambassadors going back and forth, hey, would you stop trying to steal our life, soul, and blood out of us? And like, no, we own you, and so now we're going to tax you more, and just bad things that happened. But with that in mind, they realized that it came to that point where, okay, we're either going to be oppressed or we're going to rise up and defend what we call our own. We're going to stand up for our rights and our liberty, and they won it. Congratulations to them. Thank you very much. I do greatly appreciate all the sacrifices that you gave. Why then would they not say it is the right of the people? Because it was the people who rose up. There was no militia, or no organized militia at the beginning of the Revolutionary War. Just a bunch of guys who got together and like, hey, let's try and get these guys out of our pockets and our fields and our homes and get them to stop just taking whatever they want, whenever they want, for whatever reason that they say they can. Let's stop them from doing that and do something right with this. Why would they not include a provision that it's at some point in the future, if for whatever reason the government which they set up should become corrupt, that their future generations could not then also rise up and say, no, we don't agree with this, we don't like this, you are oppressing us, you are abusing the power which you have been gifted, and it will now be removed from you by force. I mean, that's really the only, when you talk about guns, you're talking about force. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I'm not gonna candy coat it. They're there for one purpose and one purpose only: to destroy life. That's what they're there for. And I hear these people say, "Well, no, it's not. It's they're for hunting." And it's like, "Well, no, that's nice. It's a benefit. It's a side thing." And I'm a hunter, like a legitimate go out in the woods hunter, not just a monster hunter. But that's not the point. The point is protection from the overarching self-defense. You know, the people breaking your house. No, That's also an added benefit. Someone comes into my house, they probably will not be walking back out. I'm not going to say they're going to be dead, but they're probably not going to be walking. How's that? They will not leave in the same condition in which they arrived. That's a nice way of saying it. So, how is it that these are well-known conditions? This is taught in like first grade history. How is this a confusion? Like, hey, we picked up our guns and we kicked out the British. This is not rocket science here. But some people say, well, no, they meant a well-regulated militia. It's for the states and the states and the states and the states and the states. Okay, well, the states are nice, but I have another question for you. This is my second point as to why I believe it is an individual liberty rather than a overarching, well, it's only for the states to protect their own populations and it has to be well-regulated and has to be this, that, and the other, and yada, yada, so on and so forth. Here's why I say that it's individual. And this, to me, is a much better proof than, just saying, well, they just came out the Revolutionary War. It's like, pretty good there, too, because that's kind of their reasoning for putting it in there. But here's my reason as to say why that is still the reason why they put it in there. And it's very simple. If the founders of the Constitution had ever, at any point, meant for the right to keep and bear arms to be anything other than a personal individual liberty for each one of its private citizens, then why is it that the law must be altered and changed to take that right away? Think about it. Ever since the United States has been formed, people, citizens, private entities have owned and kept firearms. They just have. It's kind of well documented. In America, we have the Wild West, the cowboys riding on the hill with all their guns and shoot. I'm sorry, Stoic, but shooting at the Indians and, killing the buffalo and all that terrible stuff that happened. And then they get into town, get drunk, and shoot each other. So it's kind of balanced out. We killed them, we killed ourselves. So it kind of balanced out a little bit. But that's how it was. That's how it always has been. Since the formation of the Constitution, it has not changed in the slightest that the private citizenry have that right. So I'm curious, what is it that opponents of this, in my mind, most important of amendments, does not mean what it says it means, and in fact has practically played out as meaning since its inception? I'm curious. Why do people think, well, I know it's always meant this, and I know that people have always had guns, but that's not what it meant. I mean, that's the practical application of how it has always been applied, but no, that can't possibly be what it means, because why? I don't know. It makes no logical or even illogical sense to me to say that it ever meant anything else but private and individual right to own and keep and carry. I mean, the right of the people to keep and bear. Bear means carry. Shall not be infringed. It's right there in black and white. Well, yellow because it's gotten old, but black and white. It's kind of hard to argue with something that's that old and has been applied in that way since the beginning. I'm curious how anyone has that idea that it doesn't mean what it says it means and has always been taken as meaning. And then they don't realize that they're changing what it has always meant and saying, well, no, this is what it actually... It doesn't make any sense to me. I know that's kind of a weak place to end the show, but I don't really have anything more to say there. I'm just confused as to how that sort of thought process could come about. Like I said, to me, it makes no sense whatsoever. And so I don't really have a way to quantify it or to bring it into a realm of logical thinking. Because it quite frankly doesn't make sense. At all. Anyway, I will leave the show there. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you did enjoy, like rating down below, it'd be very much appreciated. If not, please, would just like writing a nasty comment telling me to stop being such a, I don't know, gun owner person. I don't think it's an insult. So, yeah, you're going to have a tough time getting me with that one. So, I'll see you all next time. I will probably continue something with political tomorrow. I'm not sure what. But until then, hope you all did enjoy. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.